Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of To The Point podcast. As always, I'm your host, Noah Warren, and it's week 17 NFL. We're coming up New Year, playoffs, and I kicked off the show kicked off To The Point talking about NFL with this guy, and by popular demand, he's back and he's not ready to talk about the Lions because we know they're not going to the playoffs, but he's ready to spit some fire here today. So Adam Beers is back with me. Adam, thank you for coming back on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jug. I'm glad you're doing so well.
No, I appreciate it. Any big New Year's plans for you and Melissa and the kids?
Well, not too much with the kids. They were at a sleepover last night for the first time, so that was pretty exciting for them. So tonight we have our nephews coming over, so we'll probably just lie low and make some hors d'oeuvres and bring in the new year that way.
Nice.
Yourself?
Yeah, probably just watch Team Canada against Finland tonight. Hopefully they can get a win. Haven't loved the way they played so far, but hopefully they can get a win tonight, secure first place in their division, and then hopefully grab a gold medal here Tuesday.
Yeah, it'll be nice to see a competitive game.
Yeah, it's been hard to watch. Like the Russia-Sweden played last night, and I powered myself through that. It ended at like 1:15, so but I couldn't go to bed. But that was a good game. But yeah, I agree. Once you start seeing these good teams play each other, that's when the tournament really gets going.
Yeah, I would agree.
So NFL, we're going to talk, obviously break down the playoff matchups, but I thought start off the podcast talking about Dwayne Haskins. And this guy has had quite a start to his career. He hasn't even played 2 full years yet. He's been cut now by the Washington football team this week. Former 15th overall pick out of Ohio State, and he's just had a really troubled career. And what are your initial thoughts, Adam, when you saw that he was released?
Well, other than Alex Smith signing and Ron Rivera as the coach, it's probably the best decision Washington has made in years. It had to happen. He was essentially a problem from before they drafted him. If you recall, draft night when I think Daniel Jones went sixth to New York,
Yeah,
he was on his phone and he was like laughing at the fact that they took Jones before him. So, I mean, he's been one problem after another, whether it's breaking the COVID regulations, whether it's taking selfies against the Lions earlier this year. Did you see
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Case Keenum had to come onto the field and finish essentially the game. So I think when you get a player that has more problems than results,
Right.
in this case, Haskins hasn't really produced anything.
No.
I think really you're not long for that league. There's uh, too many dollars on the line, and Washington has been kind of a hotbed of conversation anyway, like politically with their name and with their
Yeah.
owner.
Yeah.
They have the Alex Smith Feel Good Story of the Year and Ron Rivera as well. So really, I say good riddance, and I would be doubtful if he ever gets another. Well, he'll get a crack.
He'll get a crack.
There's not going to be 29 teams after him. It
No.
might be one or two.
Yeah. To your point, it comes down to production and then tolerance on the other side. If you're a Michael Irvin and you're balling out, well, you can be the troublemaker. You can, drink 100 beers a week and do whatever the hell he was doing in the 90s. But if you show up on Sunday and you're fantastic, well, you're going to put up with it. Like you said, Haskins got 12 touchdowns, 14 interceptions for his career, completing under 60% of his passes. And the past 2 games, he's thrown 5 picks. I mean, I don't like the fact that you think about it this way. He gets cut for Taylor Heineke. Like, no, not Heineken, the beer. Like, this is Heineke. This guy who's played 1 game in his NFL career for Carolina. And, Alex Smith, who might play, might not play. We don't know yet. He's got 17 surgeries on the one leg, and you get cut with those two. Like, this just shows how badly it's gone for Haskins.
Well, the thing you got to look at too is Washington was in a position to win the division
Last
right?
week, yeah.
We can talk about the NFC East after, which is it's really kind of an amazing division this year. But like they had an opportunity to win, solidify a playoff spot, give Smith time to heal for their playoff run, and he couldn't deliver. So there's only really 30 jobs in the NFL as quarterback. And when you have an opportunity, you have to grab it. And if it means you don't go out or you don't, get to go to the strip club like Haskins was at,
Yeah.
so be it. But I think sometimes for young players, this will be a learning opportunity. I think now that the paycheck's done, it might be enough to say, okay, I got to refocus. But again, you go back to your buddy Manziel. It didn't work for him. And he tried to rejuvenate the career, but you get so few opportunities that it's a $1 billion business, and really you don't have time for that intolerance. And like you said, no, I agree. If you're performing, they can turn a blind eye to it. But if you're not performing, then really you're just a distraction.
No, I think Manziel is an apt analogy, and another one is like Josh Gordon, who played with Manziel with the Browns at the time. He's been suspended 3 different times for PEDs and drugs, and he was a drug addict at this point. And he was going to be reinstated last week, failed his drug test. I mean, you only get so many chances. And for Haskins, he doesn't have a drug problem or drinking problem that we know of, but you go to a strip club after a game where you stink. That's one problem. Like, maybe think about how you could get better. But your coach has just been battling with cancer. And, however people look at COVID everybody can have their opinion on it. But if there's rules that you have to follow, you gotta think about the whole mass of people and not just think about yourself. And I think that's a tough look for him with a team trying to sign him, moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you got to consider too, as laymen, you and I mean, they're well-paid athletes. This is not something that, oh geez, I can't do anything and I'm making $20,000 a year. Like, they're compensated for those things, and they're treated like, celebrities everywhere they go. So, I mean, the fact that he would risk Rivera in that sense, it is, again, it's a sign of immaturity. It's a sign of entitlement. It's not, I don't think, a player that you would want to follow in the locker room, based on those actions. But yeah, it should be interesting. I think he'll get another crack, but it's going to be a short leash, whoever does. Have you heard any rumblings of where or who's? I heard Carolina.
I heard Carolina as well, which is interesting because they got Teddy Bridgewater under contract there. But I think it'll be a team that is no good this year. Maybe, honestly, Adam, it might be better for him to go to a good organization where he can sit behind somebody. First thing that comes to mind is Pittsburgh. I think you get somebody to sit behind Ben for next year, see what a pro does week in, week out. Maybe Houston, where you can sit behind Deshaun and just, watch him light up the league while he goes to strip clubs or whatever he wants to do. But I think I agree with you. He'll get a crack, but whether he processes what he did wrong and realizes, the immaturity is another thing, because losing the job doesn't always point out the wrinkles in your game and in yourself, because Manziel never learned.
Right. I might argue, I don't know, I think you know more obviously about Manziel than I do, but I think he was from a wealthy family.
He came,
money,
hired a upper middle class for sure.
Yeah, and when the checks dry up, for Haskins, I mean, that's a pretty big realization. You go from one week you're at the strip club throwing dollar bills around, $100 bills probably, and then the next week you're unemployed. Yeah. So it should be a wake-up call. And again, to kind of go full circle back to Josh Gordon, the reason he got so many chances was he was talented. He was supremely talented. Yeah. So I don't see any talent in this guy yet. So, I mean, his leash is going to even be shorter than a guy like Josh Gordon. They're not going to give him 7-8 tries, because I don't think he's the supreme talent. And maybe, we'll eat our words and he'll, turn his career around and become a veteran, presence in the room. But from what we've seen now, and based on, I usually say the best indicator of future behavior is past behavior. So I think, good luck, whoever signs him.
Yeah, no, buyer beware for sure. He's shown nothing to this point. And when Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones, has outplayed you in a draft class, you should really reconsider life, because it's not a high bar.
And when he has an open field, look out.
Yeah. Well, he'll get a good stride, but he'll fall before he can get there. Let's go. So today in the podcast, thought we'd just go through the playoff teams in each conference and just kind of give you an update of who they're playing and the top storylines for them heading into the week 17 this weekend. So let's start with Kansas City. 14-1. They've locked up the number 1 seed, but the really interesting thing for me, Adam, is they're resting Mahomes this week. So that means that he'll get 2 weeks of rest because they're number 1 seed. They'll get the bye week during wildcard weekend. He'd be starting at least a half if I was the coach. What are your thoughts about him not playing at all this week?
Well, again, he's a $100 million asset. I do kind of agree with you that he should play, keep the rhythm, but what happens if he does get hurt? And I know they're professional athletes. They're paid to play. They want to play, but I don't really know. I haven't come to a determination about that. It's hard. Do you sit your starters? Do you not? Do you give them the rest? Do you, football's such a brutal sport, and I'm sure they're all have nagging injuries. That would be a tough call. I'd have to really think about it, but I would probably go with Andy Reid and I would probably sit him. I think he's good enough that he can come in cold. He's not a guy like, I don't know, let's say if Carson Wentz was on a hot streak, you want to keep him playing because you don't know when the bubble's going to burst. But I think Mahomes needs 3 or 4 snaps in a playoff game, and he's back. That's how I think. But
yeah, I look at their offense the past couple weeks, and I just haven't seen it be that great. I mean, that Atlanta game, that game scared me for Kansas City because I know they're 14-1, but I just haven't seen a great team. They let a lot of teams hang around, which concerns me come playoff time. And I would want it clicking on all cylinders heading in as much as I can. And I agree with your point that he can come in cold. I think Aaron Rodgers can do the same thing in the NFC. But I just think for their offense as a whole, I think it would be better to get some continuity, get some points this weekend against the Chargers, and feel a little bit better heading into the playoffs.
Now, hypothetically, what happens if they start him and they lose that game? Are the repercussions there?
Mm-hmm.
Fluke, or they're not running on all cylinders, as he said. They go in, Chargers beat them.
Mm-hmm.
Oof, I don't know if I like that scenario either.
Right.
I don't know. I think Mahomes can do it. I don't really see, we'll talk about it later, but I don't see any teams that are really like, that there should be that fearful of, so far. But I would probably give him the rest if I had to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Proven, he's a winner. They've done it before. Good coaching. They're an all-star team in a lot of aspects, but
yeah,
I don't have a big issue with them sitting him at all, to be honest.
Yeah. He'd be playing if it was me, but I like to nitpick. So that's just me. Number 2 seed right now is the Buffalo Bills. Now they can lock up the 2 seed in the AFC with a win this weekend. Pittsburgh is also 12-3. So it would depend on that game. Buffalo playing Miami this weekend. So a big game for both teams. We'll get to Miami as we go down the list, but Buffalo, the biggest threat to Kansas City for you?
No question.
I think in the whole NFL for me.
Me too. The more I watch them, the more I absolutely love them. The acquisition of Diggs, you can't say anything about that. Allen's come into his own. And I think if like Mahomes wasn't in the league, like this guy would be on a pedestal. Like he's kind of not underrated, but he's certainly, can you see that on the screen?
Yeah, you're good.
All right, I'll get that. Should have did the updates before.
Yeah.
That being said, yeah, I like them. I think they're a threat, and I don't know what they're going to do this weekend because based on if they win or not, doesn't it change who they play in the playoffs?
Yeah. So with a win this weekend, they'll get the 2 seed and they'll play the 7th team. So as of right now, that would be Cleveland in the playoffs. With a loss and a Pittsburgh win, they drop to 3. So they're gonna play their starters because they need the win to lock up the 2 seed. So Allen, Diggs, and Co. will play this weekend.
Because if they drop to 3, do they play the Ravens?
They would play. Yep. As of right now, that's who they play.
Yeah. Well,
I'd rather play Cleveland.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Miami can get up there too, can't they?
Miami to start the weekend is 5th. but as we go down, we'll talk about it. It's a
Okay.
cluster, when it comes to this. The NFL, more than any other sport, they do such a good job at making the last weekend so enjoyable. And there's so many different options that can happen this weekend. It's just going to be great theater.
Yeah, it'll be awesome.
Great couch day. Yeah, I agree with you on Buffalo. I mean, Diggs is the best acquisition of the offseason. I don't think it's even, DeAndre Hopkins in Arizona has been great too. But just the connection that Allen and Diggs have just seems so genuine. And Diggs last year just wasn't having fun playing football with First Cousins. And he just looks reinvigorated. And, he's playing on Monday night against the Patriots, against J.C. Jackson, one of the better corners in football. And he torched him for 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he just made him. They're talking on the telecast how he was a Pro Bowl snub. And he's just like, well, you're like my little brother now. He took him apart.
That was enjoyable to watch the Patriots get hammered. Oh, did I ever enjoy that?
Yeah, that wasn't much of a, yeah. I mean, Buffalo beating them that bad in New England, 34-9. That was impressive, even with New England not being a great team. I still think going in there and beating them like that shows Buffalo's kind of moved past the second-class citizen in that division, and I think they started to insert themselves as a favorite here.
Yeah, they're definitely the real deal, no question.
Yeah, and also news on Buffalo, they've been approved to have fans. So next weekend, Bills Mafia, I think it's about 7,000 people are going to be allowed into the stadium. So tables, ladders, and chairs, a lot of, who the hell knows? I think this could get bad because the Bills fans as much as I do. The people that aren't allowed in are not going to take that well, and they'll be jumping fences. Like, I think this could be good theater before the game.
Could be the ancient Roman Colosseum. They're going to be Raptors to get in.
Yeah.
But you can't blame them. They've been waiting for so long.
Yeah, 95.
Let's get it going. The Bills are kind of one of that fan bases, like Cleveland's fan base, that just are craving, what I mean, a championship. And this is the best year they've had in 20 years to acquire one. So I can't say I blame them. I'd love to be in the stadium too, but definitely get the wrestling rings out, because they're a wild fan base for sure.
Yeah. 3 seed, like I mentioned, same record as the Bills. We got the Steelers. They're playing against Cleveland, so a big game for Cleveland and Pittsburgh in a sense. Pittsburgh with a win could possibly get second. With a loss, they're going to be third because Tennessee's 10-5. Nobody can catch them. So they've already announced that Big Ben is not playing. He's resting. Mason Rudolph is going to get the start. What do you make of this decision? They can lock up the 2 seed, yet they choose really not to go for it.
If they get into the 2 position, do they play the Browns? Is that, or that it's such chaos that it might not be the Browns there?
No, we can say the Browns right now, but it comes down to this weekend and how things shake out.
Right. So I would say, in that sense, that I would say Tomlin would say, look, it doesn't matter who we're going to play. If we're going to get through kind of the AFC, we have to go through everybody. So really, Ben, take the rest. I think he needs not necessarily a physical rest, but I think he's got to get his head on straight. Big Ben, kind of get something going here. I'm not opposed to it with Big Ben, especially because he is older. And you let the chips fall as they may, and you never know who you're going to play. So I'm not really opposed to it. But again, if you won, you play the Dolphins, for example, I would say, well, I would be gunning for the Dolphins as opposed to, let's say, the Ravens or what have you.
Right.
So, but again, it depends where the chips fall and how it goes. But I can understand why they're doing it. If I understand why they're doing it with Mahomes, it's the same. If it should be more with Big Ben based on his age and kind of where he's at in his game right now.
Yeah, I also get it in a sense. Right now, if the season ended this way, Pittsburgh will be playing Baltimore, which is interesting. They beat them both times, but the second time Lamar wasn't playing. In Baltimore, since he came back from having COVID-19, he's looked like the MVP of last season. He's been nothing short of spectacular. And if I'm Pittsburgh, I do not want Baltimore, even a division game again, third time, I agree with you. I'd rather have Cleveland or Miami. And I think you can play Ben a half, and the Bills game is happening at the same time. So say you see the Bills beating Miami by 14, maybe you sit them, you know, you can kind of watch the clock of the other games and see where it's at and kind of gauge it that way.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That's definitely not a bad idea. But if I recall correctly, Noah, you were hating on the Ravens the last time we spoke.
I was, yeah.
I think you're back on the Raven bandwagon.
Well, I still think John Harbaugh is a hero, and I don't wish him that well. But he's a crybaby. But him and Sidney Crosby are in that group together, I guess. But no, I mean, I can't put them down. They play great football. So, I'm not gonna lie and say they've been bad when they've been good. So, but no, you're 100% right. The last time they were hot garbage, so I had to say it. But since I mean, and it's all, they've beaten the game against Cleveland. That Monday night game was phenomenal. I don't know if you caught some of that. That was one of the best football games of the year, maybe the best one.
Yeah.
But since then, they've beaten Cincinnati and the Giants and Jacksonville. So it hasn't exactly been, murderer's row, but they've handled their business. And if they beat Cincinnati this weekend, they'll be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and you can only play who's in front of you. Like that's the schedule is the schedule, and if they only beat Jacksonville, well, I mean that's who's in front of them. So you got to give them. And I agree. I've always said from the beginning, like that's a team I don't want to see in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Baltimore, and like I think they are. Again, Buffalo is the biggest threat, but I would say like don't sleep on Baltimore at all.
Yeah. So Pittsburgh, like we said, probably going to finish third here with Rudolph, Eugenie Bouchard's boyfriend, behind center. Hopefully he plays better football than she does tennis. But the next 4, 5, 6, 7 in the AFC is such an interesting because it's a log jam. Tennessee, Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland, if the season ended today, would be in the playoffs. And they're all 10. They're all 10-5. So none of them have clinched a playoff spot yet. Because Indy is the 8th seed outside looking in right now. They're at 10-5. So I'll start with Tennessee for you, Adam. They're 10-5. They play Houston this weekend. Does that seem like a win to you?
It's a win, but it's not going to be an easy one. I would say that I think Tennessee, I like the way they play. Again, how can't you like Henry? I think their experience, they had that playoff experience from last year. I think they trust each other. I think they'll get the win. I don't think it'll be an easy win, but I definitely think that they'll get the win this week. In terms of, to me, the weakest team currently in is Miami. And I think possibly Indy, again, Rivers is kind of hasn't been playing that well of late. But I mean, that's why they signed him, is for a game like this week to hopefully put the edge. If they win, are they in Indy, or do they?
No. So this is how it works. If Tennessee, Indy needs somebody of those 4 teams to lose. Okay. So say Tennessee lost, Indy wins, they win the division, so they'd finish 4th.
Okay.
If Tennessee wins, Indy wins, and they get a Miami, Baltimore, or Cleveland loss, Indy gets in.
Okay. So it's
a clusterfuck. Like it's so Tennessee, I agree. I think Houston, it's a division game, and they're not going to want to let them win easily because just of pride. And Houston's not a good team, but I think they'll give a good effort. Division games are always closer than they should be, just because it's a division and they seem to have a better effort. But yeah, I think Tennessee will probably win that. They'll finish 4th in the AFC with a win there, finish 11-5. So at 10-5, 5th seed right now, the Miami Dolphins. They're playing at Buffalo. They need to win. They need to win to make the playoffs, or hope that Indy loses to Jacksonville. So what are your thoughts on Miami against Buffalo, in Buffalo?
I don't like it. Who's starting? There's the problem. If I wanted that win, I'd start Fitzy. He's a Buffalo. He played in Buffalo. He knows the cold. He's got that veteran presence. He's got the coolness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Tua is a mistake. And I mean, I think there comes a point where you got to admit it's been a mistake. If they could go back in time and do the draft again, do you think they're taking Tua?
No, but I don't think he's a mistake yet. I think you're reaching there.
Really?
He's played 1 year in the league.
I don't know.
Peyton Manning looked like a mistake his first year in the league.
Yeah, well,
Troy Aikman looked like a mistake.
yeah, that's true. Well, listen, I'll give you that, but we'll reconvene.
He could be a bust, but I just think I would start Fitzy too. To me, I don't know why he was benched. It didn't make any sense.
No, well, because it's the pressure. It's there again. You got to look at it sometimes as a business. It's a product that they're selling, right?
Yeah.
Miami, they've been tank for Tua, and it's been Tua for the last couple of years, and that's all or 2 or 3 years they've been talking about it. Now he's there. I mean, he doesn't have the receivers he had in Ohio State. Like, to me, that was peak Tua in college. Like that, I haven't seen anything initially. His first when he played against Arizona, that was a good game.
That was his best game for sure.
Other than that, he's like, I don't know.
He hangs on to the ball too long, and he's afraid because, like you said, they're so open in college, and you got to throw people open in the NFL, and Fitz knows how to do that.
Yeah. So I would say if they wanted a chance, they have to start Fitzy, and I would say Tua is on a short leash. However,
Brian Flores did mention that. He said we're going to use Fitzy like a 9th inning closer. He said if we need to go to the bullpen, we will without hesitation.
Okay.
But the problem with doing that against the Bills is the Bills can build such a lead on you early, and then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're down 2 scores in the second half, you're not coming back against the Bills.
Well, they come in waves. Like, it doesn't stop. You
No.
know? So Tua in the cold, good. I don't know. I think it's going to be a mess, but I mean, maybe. But if it was Fitzy, I would say, what, they got a chance if the defense can hold up and they can get a couple of turnovers and kind of keep the game close.
Yeah.
But if Tua is going to get the start, I think they're out of the playoffs. I think this is it for them.
Yeah, they definitely have the toughest game this weekend when it comes to making the playoffs. But another good thing I think the NFL did was schedule all division games the last weekend. I think that's the smartest thing to do, and other teams should adopt it later in the season because it sets up for really interesting matchups that have playoff implications. 6, we mentioned them already, but Baltimore, they play Cincinnati. You see them cruising?
Yep, no problem. Is Lamar starting?
Yep.
Yeah, that's put it in the way.
Brandon Allen, he's hot. Cincinnati.
I'll take that bet if you'd like to make a wager.
No, I'm not making that bet. I'm not betting on anybody in Cincinnati.
Yes.
No Reds, no Bengals, nothing.
Pete Rose is the only safe bet.
Yeah, I'll take Lamar by himself with no O-line against Cincinnati. And then we got in the 7th spot, Cleveland. We mentioned they're playing Pittsburgh, but without Big Ben. Do you think they get a win and punch their ticket to the playoffs?
Well, it's Cleveland. They always mess up. Whether it's the wide receivers sitting in the hot tub, in week 16 and not being able to play because they all been
COVID.
Cleveland always manages to screw it up in some form or fashion. Yeah. So I do have a soft spot for Cleveland. I like to watch them. I do enjoy, that organization, but I will not be confident at all, even with the backup in Pittsburgh. I wait for Baker to turn it over. The running game last week didn't look great. So I don't know. Typical Cleveland, they're going to screw it up.
Yeah. They need to run the ball. I didn't understand their game plan last week where they had no receivers and yet he asked Baker to throw the ball 50 times. Like, how does that make any sense? Like, run the ball.
It's overthinking. It's like,
it's trying to be a genius when you don't have to be.
Exactly. Give the ball to Chubb and let him,
carve.
Carry. Boom. Yeah. Gone.
Yeah, Stefanski just wanted to be Sean McVay, I think, and Sean McVay's made himself look like an idiot a few times this year. So don't jump on that sinking ship. So Indy against Jacksonville. Win?
For Indy, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. It's funny, that's Jacksonville's only win this year. He's against Indy, week 1.
Was it Gardner throwing it?
Oh yeah,
Is
slinging
Glennon?
it, slinging it.
Is Glennon
Lennon's starting this weekend. Yeah.
Oh, killed me last week. I had a FanDuel and I started Minshew, and it's like he didn't even start. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
I know.
I think Indy will get the win. Phillip Rivers is signed a 1-year deal. I think it might be his last year in the league, so get him to the playoffs. But I'm kind of with you. I think Miami will lose to Buffalo just playing in the cold. Tua, their defense is great. I think it's pretty good, but their best chance is to keep it close and try to hope for an off game from Josh Allen, because if it gets out of hand, it doesn't matter when Fitzy comes in. It won't make a difference.
Yeah, and when a team goes into a game hoping for the other team to mess up, to me
It's
that's
tough.
it's you're not in the same class. Do you know what I
No.
mean? So maybe
Yeah.
you aren't ready for the playoffs. Whereas I don't see Miami dominant saying, "Look, we're going to take this game over. We want the playoffs. We're going to go and we're going to run the ball down their throats." I don't
Yeah.
see Miami at all having the capability to do that. So I think it's going to be a nice little run by Miami, but they have a lot of decisions to make, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, it's quite a scene though. If Tennessee, Miami, Baltimore, and Cleveland all win, just say they all win, and Indy, that'd be 11-5 teams, and one of them will miss the playoffs at 11-5. That's pretty spectacular.
And then you shift to the NFC East.
Yeah. Then you shift to the NFC. Really,
exactly.
There's a lot of trash over there.
Yeah, definitely. But no, I would call Miami's out, and then the chips will fall as I think.
Right. So at that point, it would be Baltimore 5th seed, Cleveland 6th seed, Indy with the final playoff spot. So it would be Buffalo, Indy, Pittsburgh against Cleveland, and Tennessee against Baltimore. A rematch of last year's AFC divisional game.
Those are all good matches.
Yeah,
that would be a nice playoff slate.
Yes, yeah. So this year there'll be 6 wildcard games on wildcard weekend. So 3 Saturday, 3 Sunday.
That's excellent. That's the more football, the better.
Oh yeah, another couch. Yeah.
Get your Christmas pajamas ready there.
Yeah. So like you said, switching to the NFC, number 1 seed right now, they're not locked in yet. They need to win this week and punch their ticket. Is the 12-3 Green Bay Packers. They're playing against the Bears, who are desperate for a win. If the Bears win, they go to the playoffs. But do you think Aaron Rodgers and co will clinch the number 1 seed in the NFC?
This is a tough. I know they're not locked in at first place, but they're locked in as a team. I mean, they look phenomenal. Rodgers is throwing in the snow against the Titans. He was just smiling. He was laughing.
Yeah.
This is easy. He just made them look terrible. The Bears, this is a game I've been struggling really because I've never been a big Trubisky fan. I thought his career was over. He's going to come back out of nowhere. For some reason, I don't know. I think maybe the Bears can pull it off, but I'm trying to convince myself of that more than anything.
Right.
I like the Bears organization. Not a big fan of Trubisky, but it would be nice to see them, get the win. I don't know if they can, but I wouldn't wager the house on it, but I would certainly say, you know what, why not? I've doubted Trubisky all year really, and he's continued to impress. But I think the last time he's only 1-5 against the Packers. I think lifetime.
Yeah, he is.
So I don't know. What do you think? Where you stand on that?
I think Green Bay wins a close game. The Bears are still good defensively, and Trubisky's played good football over the last 3-4 weeks. I think it's the most important game of Trubisky's career, and I also think it's the most important game of Matt Nagy's career, because I think if the Bears lose the game, Matt Nagy's fired on Monday, and Trubisky won't be their quarterback next year because they already declined his 5th-year option, so he'll be out. So it'll be wholesale changes in Chicago. They can still make the playoffs, even if they lose, if Arizona was to lose to the Rams, but I doubt that happens. So it's interesting. It's interesting here what can happen, but it's a huge game for the Chicago Bears franchise, who haven't really gotten close to any prosperity in a while.
Yeah, it's To me, I think you're completely correct with Nagy being gone. I think Trubisky is probably gone. I would say for me, this is Trubisky's defining moment. This is
Mhm.
his one game for millions of dollars. If he gets the win, and let's say they win one round of the playoffs, the pressure to sign him is going to be much higher.
Yep.
Financially, he'll get much more. He'll be getting starter money versus
Yep.
maybe a
Mariota.
Yep. And I mean, this is it. This is what he's worked up to. So, in that sense, it's a really interesting game to watch solely for the Trubisky story. This is the one game that will define his career, I think. And hopefully, it would be nice to see the kid pull it out, if you could do that.
Yeah.
But there'll be wholesale changes. If they get the loss, I don't think he's coming back either. And then, I mean, what do you do from there? Where do you go? But
Yeah, it's a huge game, and we could say that about half the teams right now that are thinking of getting a quarterback upgrade. And there are a lot more bad quarterbacks in the NFL than there are good ones, in my opinion. And drafting them is coming with less and less success. So it's tough landscape right now. If you get a good quarterback, sign him for a while because you never know when you're going to get another one.
yep, for sure.
2 seed right now is the New Orleans Saints. They finish against Carolina. They can clinch the number 2 seed with a win. Do you see them doing that against Teddy Bridgewater and co?
Who's starting at QB? Are they?
Drew.
He's going to throw. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they'll clinch. They're again a nice veteran team. Kind of know what's on the line. I think they should have no problem with Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, I think New Orleans will win, but I think they might lose their first playoff game. Drew Brees looks beat up and he looks over the hill. That Christmas Day game, he threw 2 really terrible picks. Underthrow and then just not seeing coverage. And he looks like he's scared out there too, which is hard to watch because obviously he's going to protect himself. He's got the rib injury, but I just wish it was a different circumstance for him because I think the Saints are a really good team, but I don't know if I don't see them having much success in the playoffs again this year, which I think will probably be his last year in the NFL.
Do you think that was kind of rust maybe and maybe not preparation?
I'm hoping so. Yeah.
Those guys like a Tom Brady and a Drew Brees, those guys are professionals. They prepare, they have their routine. You kind of maybe come back a little bit quicker. I don't know. I'm not ready to count him out yet. I think definitely is. I mean, I think he'll have another year. Do you think he's done?
I think he's done.
Really?
Yep.
Jeez, I think
he goes to NBC and has a cushy job there.
But I mean, there's no quarterbacks. Who are you going to get? Who's Chicago? He'd fit in Chicago. Throw him there.
Yeah. Well, he's under contract for another year in New Orleans, Drew. But Taysom.
Yeah, he's looking good.
Let him sling it.
Yeah, I like it. Well,
Jameis.
Yeah, let's not get back on it. Let's not beat that dead horse. Well, but do you think they'll kind of have a similar thing with Miami? If they see that Drew doesn't have it in the first quarter, do you think they'll switch to Taysom?
You never know.
Yeah, that is.
I think that's tougher. I think that's tougher than Miami just because I think Sean has so much respect for Drew that I don't know if he'd do it just to show him up. I wouldn't put it past Sean Payton because he wants to win.
Yep.
But I think he'd have to be playing really bad to switch to Taysom.
Okay. But I mean, he's looked good. He's
looked fine. Yeah.
Yeah, he looked fine.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that should be something to watch at least. You never know.
3rd seed right now is Seattle. They still have an outside chance of finishing 1 with New Orleans losses and a Green Bay loss. They play San Fran. What do you think about Seattle? They've kind of had an up and down season where Russell Wilson's looked fantastic, and then during spurts he's looked terrible against losses to the Giants. And how about Seattle? Are they a threat in the NFC?
Well, Seattle to me is a team I can't figure out.
Yeah.
Like one week they look like, holy smokes, these guys are awesome. And then the next week you're like, what? They lost to the Giants?
Yeah.
So again, they're well coached. They're veterans. Sometimes those teams, they just need the playoffs too. Seattle's the type of team that, the regular season, the goal is to get to the playoffs, and that's when the season begins.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't count them out. I could see them winning the Super Bowl, but I could also see them having a first round exit. So really no clarity on my end from what they are, but it's a team that's I find hard to distinguish, what you're going to see week to week.
Yeah, no, I agree. They're so inconsistent. Even Russell Wilson's been really inconsistent lately. Metcalf is a great receiver, but he's kind of like the team. He has his weeks where he looks like Megatron, and there's weeks where you're like, where's Waldo? And their defense, the one thing I can say about them, their defense is starting to play really well. Jamal Adams, one of my favorite players in the NFL. He's just a little beast out there, just blowing people up, sacking the quarterback, telling Adam Gase to stick it for trading him. So I think if their defense can keep playing, it gives them a chance against anybody, because I don't think there's a great team in the NFC. But they'll definitely be interesting, because like I agree with you that they're a playoff. They have that playoff mold of experience and knowing what it takes to win.
I would say they're going to miss their home crowd too.
Yeah, for sure.
The Chiefs, that is a really huge asset. Probably more than any other sport, how crowds influence the games. So I know that that's something in the playoffs that they'll miss as well.
Yeah.
Sure.
And then the 4th seed in the NFC, and this is where it brings us to the NFC East or least. It's right now the 6-9 Washington football team. They've just cut Dwayne Haskins. Alex Smith is up in the air. They might be without their top receiver, Terry McLaurin. They're without their top running back, Antonio Gibson. They play the Eagles on Sunday Night Football. But before they play the Eagles, the Giants play the Cowboys. And the winner of that game will win. The winner of the Giants and Cowboys will win the division if Washington cannot beat Philadelphia Sunday night. So who do you see winning the division?
Well, I just love the fact that you said 6-9 playoff team.
Yeah.
Serious pace.
I know.
It's very professional of you, Noah, to say that.
I know.
Again, it's probably it's the worst division in 50 years.
Oh, it's so bad.
But it's probably the games of the week.
Washington, we just mentioned 6-9, 69. They play Sunday night against the Eagles on primetime Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Like why the hell isn't it Green Bay and Chicago? No, we got to put the football team and the Eagles. Like
everybody can't look away from a car wreck.
No.
You can't help but watch.
Yeah.
My heart says Washington.
Yeah.
My heart says with Ron Rivera, with Alex Smith's story, minus, the quarterback issue with Haskins.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I would love to see Washington get this position solely for those two guys.
Yeah.
But Dallas is rolling. Like 2 weeks ago, I thought Philly was rolling. I said, okay, they're going to grab the division. Mm-hmm. They were on fire, and they go into Dallas and they get hammered. So to me, Dalton looked kind of like Dalton 6 years ago, in Cincinnati. It's in Dallas, is it not?
It is in the Meadowlands. No, it's in New York.
New York. So, that might play.
Danny Dimes is beat up. He's gotten sacked 12 times in the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, none of those teams give any but confidence either way to defend or to be offensive and get the victory.
Yeah.
The Cowboys, the playoffs. If Jerry Jones gets into the playoffs with a 6-9 record, man, he's going to have a heart attack.
Yeah.
But I want to say Washington. I think Dallas will get in. It's always nice to see Dallas in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I must admit, just so you can watch them get to get beat. But I would say Washington is going to struggle to get the win. They might get the win, but if Dallas beats the Giants, which I think will happen, it's pretty well a lock. Or no, if Washington wins, they're in.
If Washington wins, they're in. But yeah, if Washington loses, winner of Dallas, G-Men are in.
Wow, it's such a disaster.
Yeah.
like Philly, who can't beat Philly, but it's Washington. They probably can't beat Philly.
Yeah, so this is how potentially it could fold. Washington loses, they're 6-10. If the Giants beat the Cowboys, they're 6-10. The Cowboys would be 6-10, and Giants make the playoffs at 6-10.
So the Giants can see. Oh yeah, the Giants. It's only Philly that's out.
Philly's out. Yeah.
Okay.
They're 4-9-1.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So the game of the week, it should be interesting. I'd love to see Washington, but I think the way Dallas is playing right now, I think they're going to probably get in. I'm not confident that Washington can beat with all the injuries Philly. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not saying much about Philly either. They're nothing to call home
No.
about.
No, I did a podcast a few weeks ago with a friend, and I'd written down every game in the division so we could kind of read out who everybody was playing. And I'm like, Dallas is going to come back and win this division somehow. And I said, I don't really want to say it, but I have to because that's what I think is going to happen. And they're going to win the division. They're going to beat the Giants are beat to hell. And I agree with you. Alex Smith is comeback player of the decade, of the century. I mean, the fact that he's playing professional football is, I think everybody can look up to that. It's kind of like Sarah Fuller playing, kicking field goals at Vanderbilt. Every young woman can look towards her as a goal one day. And I think if he doesn't play, Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, that's not good.
I take the case of Heineken back there first. At least you get some fun out of that.
Well, he did a lot better than Haskins did, though.
Yeah, but that's not saying much.
No, I know, but he come in and he threw like 2 plays. He had more yards than Haskins. So I mean, you got to give him something.
Yeah, I still think the Eagles will want to play spoiler. I mean, they don't want the Cowboys to win the division either, but they'll want to finish the year off with a win. Jalen Hurts kind of maybe the new starter. So I think Dallas wins the division after beating the Giants on Sunday. And what an end to a crazy, crazy division.
It has been fun to watch. It's so nice to have like Dallas and New York and Philly as the brunt of all jokes. You know, great. I love it. So usually they were the featured game of the week all year. I was so sick of seeing Giants games and Philly games.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see them take their lumps.
Yeah. 5th seed. This team has clinched a playoff spot, the 10-5 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were in trouble. Then they beat Minnesota in that game a few weeks ago, and they've been riding high since, coming back against Atlanta, dismantling your Detroit Lions, and really embarrassing them in that first half. Tampa Bay, to me, they're my biggest threat to Green Bay, and they might be even slightly above Green Bay when it comes to winning the NFC. How do you see them?
I agree. You can't, and again, it's the old saying, you can't count Tom Brady out.
Mm-hmm.
I also like the fact too that Tom is a cold weather quarterback. You know what I mean? If they're in Tampa 10-5, it's kind of like the Jared Goff effect. You put him in cold weather, and I mean, it's game over. So they're a threat. I think they're a team like that with so many changes in one year, whether it's from coaching and how you're going to run your offense and defense and, wide receivers and making that kind of getting that chemistry. I think you're starting to see that it's starting to come together. What a time to come together rolling into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do think that they're going to be a threat. And I think they'll go a couple of, I think they have the possibility or chance to go deep in the playoffs. I don't know if it was a couple weeks ago, somebody said, they played KC this year, didn't they?
Yeah, they lost by 3.
And I thought that Tom said C in the Super Bowl or something like that. I don't know if that was true or not, but
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. So, or did he diss him that game? Was that the game that?
No, he didn't shake Goff's hand.
Okay, it was Goff. Okay.
He didn't shake after the game. He didn't go shake Goff's hand. I think he did go shake Mahomes's. So
okay.
He had enough respect for him, I guess.
Yeah, well, we can talk about Goff after.
yeah, we will.
But yeah, I don't know. I think they're interesting. They're certainly interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they lost in the first round, but I'd also wouldn't be surprised if they're in the Super Bowl. So they're just such a wild card.
Yeah. What I like is to finish their season, they're playing well, which bodes well for them going forward. They're hitting their stride at the right time, and Tom Brady looks great. I don't think you can rely on him being your best player game in, game out anymore. But if you can play good complementary football, run the ball, and they got a defense that can sack the quarterback, they have a chance anytime they take the field. You mentioned Jared Goff, so let's go to the Rams. They're in the 6th seed. 9-6. They haven't clinched a playoff spot yet, but they're likely to make it. But Jared Goff is out this week, not available. He'll be replaced by John Wolford, and Cooper Kupp is also out for the Rams. He's tested positive for COVID, so he won't be available. But Wolford, just a little info on him. He hasn't taken a start in the NFL. He hasn't taken a snap, hasn't made a start, played at Wake Forest, and he could be could be a good thing, could be a bad thing for the Rams. But any thoughts on Jared Goff, Adam? Well, I guess we've lost Adam here. Lost Matt earlier today too, so a little internet issue. But the Rams, to me, are a team that just can't find themselves. Jared Goff is inconsistent. He doesn't play great football, and he's a guy that just doesn't play great when you need him to, and he makes a lot of mistakes. And he's broken his thumb. He had surgery, and obviously they'd be better off with Jared Goff. But I think Wolford, they're likely not going to win this week. They play Arizona, so it's a big game for them. I think we'll see Arizona take that win, but we'll see how that plays out, obviously. Finally, the 7th seed, we got Chicago against Green Bay. And Chicago, we mentioned it earlier, I don't think they'll win the game. And I don't think Chicago will win, but I don't think Chicago will win. I think Arizona, who's on the outside looking in, will win. So that will likely push Arizona to they'll beat the Rams. They'll improve to 9-7. Rams will drop to 9-7, and Chicago will finish 8-8, just a game outside the playoffs. So using that metric, we got 1 seed Green Bay bye. So I think it'll be New Orleans against the Rams, and Seattle against Arizona, and Dallas against Tampa Bay for the NFC playoffs. So a lot to be decided, but it's certainly going to be an interesting weekend. A lot of great matchups and a lot to look out for. Obviously, a lot more coming here onto the point. We'll be talking about the weekend on Monday, breaking down what goes on in the league. We'll also be talking about the World Juniors at that point. It's the quarterfinals will be Saturday, so we'll be talking NFL on Monday. I want to thank you guys for listening. Have a safe and happy New Year. And just for everybody supporting me thus far, I really appreciate it. I'm going to be doing a lot of content coming up in the new year. Plan on getting a better background, upgrading a few things on my end so that the listening experience is better for all of you. So from everybody here to the point, happy New Year, stay safe, and we'll talk soon.